Retro Games fans, this is Andy C from Pieces of 8-Bit. Welcome to this week's video. This week's video is called Battle of the Blocks. What do I mean by that? Well, Battle of the Blocks is going to be a retrospective of what I think are the 5 most important block puzzle games that you can get on your console. The reason I'm doing it at the moment, obviously, is because this month, as part of my month-with series, I have got the Sony PlayStation Portable, which I'm living with for a month, and I will be travelling with this very, very shortly. And I think any handheld console really should have a good block puzzle with it. So whether that's the Game Boy and obviously the infamous Tetris, whether that is something like the DS with something like Zookeeper, or whether that's going to be the Game Gear with something like Columns. And I think these games are really important on these small platforms, because when you're sitting around playing, say you're waiting in an airport or something like that, you might not want to be stuck into something like Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories. You know, fabulous a game as that is, and as much as I love it, and we will be having a look at that, you want a game that you can just pick up and play and just kind of pass the time with. And the block puzzles were just great ways of doing that. And they also opened up these little consoles to a broader audience. You know, they made them more appealing to adults who weren't really interested in the sort of game, the sort of games that were coming on a lot of these. The block puzzles were great sort of time passes. You could sit on the bus for 5 minutes and play a bit of Tetris, whatever it happened to be. So I think these block puzzles are really important. And as time has gone on, I think as we've seen the advent of social media and things like that, we've also seen things like, various games, Fruit Ninja and things like that have appeared on mobile platforms, on phones and things as well. So they continue to live on, but they really have their roots in some of these older, especially like the Game Boy and the Game Gear, some of these older portable consoles. Tetris especially was an absolute phenomenon. So what I'm going to be doing today is I've picked what I think are 5 of the most important block puzzle games, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about each one. I'm going to play each one for about 5 minutes. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the history, a little bit about the gameplay, and I'll also tell you which ones are my favourite and which ones I think are the most influential. So without any further ado, let's get dug straight into the first one. And that first game is Columns on the Game Gear. So let's go and have a look at Columns. Okay, so first up is Columns. This was launched in 1990 in Japan and 1991 worldwide, and it was one of the launch titles for the Game Gear, which is the version that we're seeing on the screen here at the moment. Developed by Sega, by an American developer called Jay Gearston, and it was ported to the Game Gear by Sega as a flagship puzzle for handheld users. It's basically a falling block puzzle, and it is seen, I guess, as Sega's answer to Tetris. It's not a game that I think is as good as Tetris, but it gets quite addictive, and it also gets quite quickly, if that makes any sense. It gets quite hard quite quickly. The shapes drop really, really quick. The idea is that you've got these different coloured blocks that you see falling down here. You can't rotate them, but you can change the order in which the colours appear in the block. And the idea is to create lines of 3 related colours. Those lines can be diagonal or horizontal or vertical, and yeah, that's the idea. So the idea is just to go as far as you can, very, very similar to Tetris in that respect, and score as highly as you possibly can. Obviously, as I mentioned before, as the levels progress, then the falling speed increases, and that obviously creates additional pressure for the player. So basically, the long short of it is that Sega did want to have Tetris on their Game Gear, but they couldn't, so they developed Columns instead, and it was marketed very much as a rival. And in some regions, in fact, it was also similar to Tetris, which was bundled with the Game Boy. The Game Gear version of Columns was also bundled with the Game Gear. It was particularly interesting on the Game Gear because it was colourful, which is obviously something that they could not achieve with Tetris from the outset. Obviously on the monochrome display on the Game Boy. And it has a really nice little soundtrack, and it is a really quite interesting it's quite an interesting little game. I'd never really played Columns a great deal back in the day, and it certainly for me is not a patch on Tetris really, but it is a good little game. it is very challenging. It gets hard very quickly, as I mentioned before. And yeah, I mean, this sort of, I guess, really was the sort of thing that inspired your Candy Crushes and your Bejeweleds and all of those things before it. So yes, a good entry from Sega here on the Game Gear. And we did see it on other platforms as well. But yeah, the Game Gear was the version that I would see, and obviously what we're talking about here is portables. So let's have a look a little bit at the gameplay here that's going on. So at the moment, this is just the first level. I pretty much have screwed up here already. When I recorded this, I played a few of the other puzzle games already, and yeah, as a result, it took me a little while to get my head back into playing this again after playing Tetris and Dr. Mario before it. Very, very different sorts of a game. But yeah, you can see here, you get sort of quite a good score if you're able to chain your clearances. So essentially, that is something that you know, is the case in most of these sort of puzzle games here. So yeah, doing all right there. Got 4 in that one. It does mess with your head a little bit more than Tetris, I think. Whereas you're just fitting shapes with Tetris, this one is a bit unusual because you're trying to sort of work out if something's going to go diagonally and trying to chain it. It is quite hard. It requires slightly different thinking. Just moved on a little bit here, a few levels. As you can see, in a lot of trouble here. Probably just play this for another minute or so. I think I've edited this so that it finishes, and you can see just how quickly at level 5. Look. And suddenly we've switched to level 5, how quickly the blocks are dropping now. And it requires, for me certainly, and I think probably if you played this game a lot, you'd sort of get your brain into it a little bit more. When we talk about Lumines later, Lumines, sorry, I will talk a little bit about that and how you sort of start to think about how the game works, and you start doing a bit of pattern recognition, which really, really helps you in these games. But because I'd not really played columns a lot before, and getting my head back into that space, as you can see here, I'm in a lot of trouble now. So probably only a matter of seconds to go before I'm out. And you start to panic. Once you get to this level, you really start to panic. Or at least I do, trying to think about how to do things. And just working out the diagonals is quite hard. It requires an extra couple of brain cycles just to figure out where it needs to be. And there we go. That is game over. All right, let's go and have a look now at Dr. Mario. Welcome to Dr. Mario. This is Mario's first medical role, and it's the first game to show Mario in a non-platforming role since Mario Brothers. And it was really Nintendo leaning into brand flexibility, showing Mario as more than just a plumber. Although, frankly, he's just chucking medicine in here. His role in this is pretty limited, I would say. Essentially, what we're doing here is we are trying to eliminate the viruses. And we've got 3 types. We've got Chill, which is blue, Fever, which is red, and Weird, which is yellow. And they all have unique animations and their own little personalities, and they bounce around and have different dancing behaviour on the screen. And that was something that the fans really enjoyed. It has an amazing soundtrack, as you can hear. It's very, very catchy, as is typical of Nintendo. And yeah, as you can see, what we've got to do to eliminate the viruses is we throw in these little sort of coloured blocks in. These are the medicine pills, and we need to get rows of 4 colours, including the actual virus itself. So basically 3. We'll see it here. 3 yellows on top of this one here will eliminate it, and the other ones we can just pop down the bottom. If we get any row of colour 4 together, it will eliminate those as well. So if the screen starts to fill up, you can do that. And obviously straight away as we get on to the next stage, so that was level 0, this is level 1. It gets quite difficult quite quickly, and it's one of those games which will really, really punish you for indecisiveness. Yeah, and you get it wrong, and then you've sort of got to go and fix it. But it is always recoverable, certainly in these early stages. The NES version actually supported a 2-player competitive mode, which was a big selling point. And clearing combos would drop sort of garbage capsules on the opponent's screen, which is very similar to Puyo Puyo, in fact, or Tetris Attack. So that was also a lot of fun. Not something I did a great deal. I played Puyo Puyo multiplayer, and we'll talk a little bit about Puyo Puyo in a bit. But yeah, 2-player, very appealing on the NES, and it's a great game on the Game Boy as well. And obviously with monochrome, it's a little bit trickier, but you have like a sort of instead of having 3 colours, what you have is like a slightly different pattern on the little medicine things. It did have a little bit of controversy because of the whole, you know, especially back in the era when it came out, parents were nervous about the idea of throwing pills around. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when you think about, you know, that by modern day standards, that really isn't that big of a deal. Yeah, it's a great little game. Not a game I played a huge amount, but as you get into it, it is quite addictive. You see I messed up there. I absolutely messed up there. And that's me being indecisive. That will absolutely screw you over. Similar to Tetris, you can also move the blocks. So that red one that I dropped on the bottom a second ago, I could have actually slung that underneath the red virus there as well, but I didn't. And as you get sort of used to it, you can see that you can kind of stack it up. So here we go, look, I'm going to put that one there, and then you see the yellow one drops down, so you can obviously do it so you've got maybe 4 kind of queued up on another virus, and then swap it round and it will drop, and then you'll get a chain of 2 or 3, and you get sort of you get bonus points for that, I think, and it usually makes a little sound, a little extra sound as well, although for some reason it does that on the Game Boy. It doesn't seem to do it so much on here, but yeah, you get the idea. Really simple prospect of a game, and yeah, quite straightforward to play. Once you get the hang of it, it takes a little while to get going with it, and yeah, it does build the pressure, and you do start to panic a little bit. But yeah, this is a game probably that punishes you more than any other block game for indecisiveness, because if you put the wrong colour on top of one of the viruses, you've then got to clear all of that same colour before you can then get back to starting to clear the virus. As you can see at the top there, I've got those 2 yellow ones on top of that red one, so I've got to clear that. I've got to clear all those yellow blocks first. At the same time, I've also got to be thinking about where I'm going to put the other things. So kind of having a mental note of where the viruses all are in your head as well, and knowing what sort of blocks you're looking for. Looking at what block is coming next is also really important in here, probably even more so than in Tetris. So great fun little game. We're going to move on and we're going to talk about Puyo Puyo next, but let's just leave this running for a few more seconds, and I'll see you in Puyo Puyo. Right, let's have a look at Puyo Puyo. This is a game developed initially in Japan in 1991, and it had its first major console hit in 1992 on the Mega Drive, and it was later referred to or called Dr. Robotnik's Mean Beam Machine on the Genesis and Mega Drive, and Kirby's Avalanche on the SNES, which is something I wasn't aware of. And yeah, it was developed by Compile, which was handled by Sega, and developed and designed by Masamitsu Munitani. You can tell I was just reading that off the screen there. Apologies if I got the pronunciation wrong there. And the idea is that you've got a fall-in block puzzle game here featuring Puyos. Those are those coloured blobs that you've seen on the screen there. Very brightly coloured, very pretty as well. And players match 4 or more of those Puyos. They don't have to be in lines or diagonal or anything else like that. They just need to be grouped together. You can see as the colours join, they sort of link together there. Essentially, when you match the 4, they disappear, and then if you get chains, what can happen then is you can then drop garbage onto your opponent's side. And the idea of the game is to basically survive longer than your opponent does. So if they fill their screen up, same as with all of these block puzzles, basically it is game over for them. So we're on the first level here at the moment. Not much is happening, so we're going to skip forward in a minute towards the end of this first stage. But you can see here I'm doing slightly better, which I should be on the first level, but you can see those garbage blocks dropping there. And we switch now, so a lot more on my opponent's screen, quite a bit on my screen as well. I'm a little bit panicked at this point, but yeah, some of these are quite useful. We can just get a chain going, that will really help us. Why did I put it that side? That was a mistake. But it's nice. It can be sort of quite forgiving, so you can do that there. You can find another blue one. Look, you can see me here. I'm just going to slot it in there, and then I'm going to chain a few. And on the right-hand side, you'll see, there we go, a load of garbage ones. And if you get a sort of a line there, essentially they've got to start again to remove those. But as you sort of get a chain, or as you connect 4 Puyos together, it will destroy the garbage ones as well. So you're not completely sunk, but it is obviously quite difficult. If you keep doing that, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble there. So some interesting facts and trivia about the game while we're just watching this here. So the characters in Puyo Puyo originally came from Madhu Monogatari, so I'm just referring to my notes here, which is a dungeon crawling RPG by Compile, as it happens. So it actually started off as a dungeon RPG. I don't quite know how that was a thing. We had characters like Al Nadia and Carbuncle, who are from that universe, which is why early Japanese Puyo Puyo has a lot of RPG style anime flair in it. You definitely saw that from the startup sequence, even though I couldn't read any of the words that were on the screen there. It definitely has that. And there we go, I won that round. Brilliant. Also noticed as well, you probably picked up on the fact that it does have a really fabulous soundtrack, as well as many of these puzzles do. Completely random, but as I say, yes, you can definitely see that anime influence there. No idea what's going on there at all. And in my playthrough earlier, I actually only got through to this level, and then I got absolutely rinsed. So it is really, really difficult. So yeah, unlike Tetris and drmario, Puyo Puyo rewards planning combos. So the idea is really to not just clear pieces, but really to kind of try and plan ahead a little bit. The more you do that, the more the junk Puyos will land on the opponent's side, and the more chance you've got of obviously winning. So yes, it is just a really fun little addictive game to play. I really like Puyo Puyo. It's a game that I probably came to later in life. It wasn't really on my radar until more recently. You know, we've seen things like Puyo Puyo versus Tetris, which is quite interesting, you know, marrying those two games together sort of more recently. So it is a game that has really stood the test of time. I think it's a really pretty looking game as well. It's very, very colourful, and it sounds fabulous. So yeah, there we go. That's Puyo Puyo. So let's now look at Lumines, which is one of my absolute favourites on the PlayStation Portable. Right, so now on to one of my absolute favourites. I absolutely love this game. This is Lumines, or for some reason, for the most part of forever, I've called it Lumines. It just feels right. Lumines feels wrong. But anyway, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I absolutely, absolutely adore this game. And as puzzle games go, I am not afraid to say that this is probably my favourite. I played this for hours on the PSP, and I played it for hours on the Vita. I love it when I'm travelling. I'll just be sitting in an airport terminal when I'm travelling, and I can just play this, and it just passes the time. It came out in 1994 in Japan, and it came out in 2005 worldwide, and it was a PSP launch title, which is why I had it from the very beginning. It was later ported to many platforms, so we saw it on Xbox Live, PS2, PS Vita, the Switch, etc. And it was developed by Q Entertainment, and it was created by Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who was also behind the fabulous, fabulous game which is Res, which is another game that I absolutely adore. Try playing that in VR, that is amazing. And it is published by Bandai in Japan and Ubisoft globally as well. So another Ubisoft title which has Ubisoft on the front, which I really, really like. The idea is you drop in these two 2x2 blocks. It's very, very simple premise. And as you can see on the screen here, what we're trying to do is create blocks, squares of the same colour. And so you very quickly learn how the game mechanics work. So obviously you sort of spot patterns. And as you progress, as you can see there, we're just changing levels, and the background changes and the music changes and everything else as well. And what I really love about this game, given its sort of age, is the fact that it essentially, the music part of it is just essentially sort of tuned into the way that you're playing the game. So the beat of the music essentially works with the game you're playing. And later versions of this saw some incredible titles. I mean, we had you know, people like Chemical Brothers, and I think it was Fatboy Slim, I think, in the one on the Vita. So some really cool music on here as well. And obviously the idea is to clear as many blocks as you can. And you can see here what I just did there was I cleared all of the same colour, and you've got a 1,000-point bonus. So in these early stages, you really want to try and build up your score by eliminating single colours or eliminating all the blocks together. You get a 10,000 bonus for that. Trouble is, you end up with an odd number of squares very, very easily. So you end up in this situation that I'm in here, where I've got one block left over. It's really annoying. You also get little blocks with gems in, and those ones basically, in this first version especially, you would, if you get them into a square, into a block that's cleared, if any that are linked to it, like chains to it, will also clear as well of the same colour. So that's quite useful. That's a useful way of getting rid of things. We'll see it happen again in a moment. So there's another level here that I've just skipped on to. And the soundtrack to this is fantastic, and this game is just so outrageously addictive. And when I was recording this, I mean, I've had to cut it down. Here we go. Here's one of the gems. Let's just have a quick look at this. Look at that. Oh, it's so satisfying. What I didn't mention, obviously, you've probably seen it from the gameplay, figured it out yourself if you haven't played this already, is that basically what you want to do is create these blocks, and then that little sweeping arm will come over, and it will obviously clear whatever's been matched. And so you have to sort of time your game based on when the arm sweeps over. So you might want to wait if you're trying to clear a colour until it's passed and then drop the blocks that way, or you might be in a rush to drop the blocks to try and get a good combo. If you get sort of up to 4 blocks, like we had there, look, you'll see the little avatar that I've got, the little cat dancing on the left. That's because I got a bonus. So I've got a 4 times multiplier. If you get 5, you get 5 times multiplier, and so on. So you want to try and chain as much as you can. Skip forward again here. I think I did this bit because I've got a couple of chains here in one go. So we'll see. Here we go. There we go. There's a little gem there. So we're going to get rid of those. And I just love everything about this game. I love how addictive it is. I love the simplicity of it. I love the music in it. It is just a really, really fun game. And it's surprising, actually, because not a lot of people, not loads and loads of people are familiar with this game, which I find really surprising. The PSP was popular. This was a launch title. And there are a lot of people that are aware of it, but not as many as who might be aware of Tetris, for instance. And I think this game is definitely worthy in any block puzzle countdown. I don't know whether that's ever been done before or not, but there we go. That's Lumines. Absolutely fantastic game from 2004. Obviously a lot newer than some of the others, but yeah, it is fantastic. Yeah, praise for that addictiveness, that stylish design, that immersive audio, and largely considered probably one of the best launch titles on the PSP. So fantastic. Yeah, let's go and have a look at, you've probably guessed it already, the last one, which is Tetris. Okay, so this is Tetris, and it needs no introduction, really, does it? This is probably the granddaddy of block puzzle games. It is certainly the oldest in this list here. It was created by Alexei Pajitnov, did I say that right? In the Soviet Union in 1984, and it first ran on a Soviet computer. In fact, what was called an Electronica 60, which I didn't know until I did my research. I didn't even realise it was that old of a game. Actually, I've always associated this with Game Boy, and let's face it, it was popularised by those ports to PC, arcades, NES, but let's face it, it was the Game Boy version, which is the version we're seeing on here on the screen, through a Game Boy Color, in fact, that really brought it into the mainstream. That's when everybody had heard of it. The nice thing about Tetris was, of course, is that you didn't have to have a Game Boy to play it. There was loads of little LCD electronic games that you could buy for a few pounds that would play Tetris, or blocks games or something else like that. It might not be called Tetris, they might not have the same music, but for all intents and purposes they were the same thing. And it's a very simple premise. I mean, I imagine that anybody watching this probably needs no prior description on how this game works, but the idea is that you've got these different shaped blocks that fall down, and you've got to fit them into the slots, and you clear lines when you catch them all up. And you could be doing what I'm doing here, which is getting greedy and trying to get Tetris. Tetris is when you basically get 4 lines in a row that go, and you do that thing in Tetris where you wait for that long the stick, the line of 4 in a row, and yeah, that is what you need basically all the time. You're forever waiting for those, and it's a case of whether you want to take the risk and wait to get the big Tetris and get the bonus points, or whether you're happy to just do one line at a time. Some people do it that way. I used to get very stressed playing this game if I got blocks. You can see here I've got sort of gaps. That used to stress me out, but as you'll see in a moment, I do manage to recover a little bit. I am by no means an expert, and I shouldn't be doing this badly on level 0, that's for sure, but in my defence, which was always my defence and everybody's defence in Tetris, of course, I just didn't have the blocks. I wasn't given I just didn't have the luck. So yeah, as you imagine, it obviously gets quicker as time goes on, and yeah, a lot of companies wanted the publishing rights for this. So in the late 80s, we had Atari, Microsoft, Nintendo, all wanted a piece of this, and yeah, it was so wild, in fact, that they made a movie in 2023 on Apple TV, which you should definitely go check out if you have that. Yeah, it's really a phenomenon. So much so, in fact, that apparently there's something, and again, which when I did my research, I discovered this, and I didn't know there was a thing. This is called the Tetris effect, where people actually play it so much that they start seeing the blocks falling in their mind even after they've finished playing, which is a real psychological phenomenon, which is absolutely nuts to consider, really. But yeah. Essentially, then, I mean, this Game Boy version here came out in 1989. It was pack-in title for the Game Boy, and it really helped Nintendo, probably for the first time, really reach that wider, older audience, and it sold over 35 million copies on the Game Boy alone. That does obviously help the fact that it was a pack-in game. Definitely gives them some benefit there. But yeah, and it's still going strong. Tetris is still going strong, and we've seen things like Tetris 99, Tetris Effect, Connected, and lots of fan ports as well as sort of, you know, as I mentioned before, LCD versions of that aren't quite the same but are basically the same. And the game itself really hasn't changed much in 40 years, so it is really an incredibly important game, and it's why I've sort of saved it for last. Have I saved the best for last? Well, we'll talk about that in a moment, but it is certainly one of the most important games, certainly on the handhelds, but probably one of the most important games ever. It is an incredibly important game, and let's face it, you're always wanting to hear that soundtrack. What a wonderful, wonderful soundtrack Tetris has. So let's listen to that for a little bit longer, and then we're going to go back, and I'm going to talk about which were my favourites, and just sort of give my last final thoughts on all of these block games. Alright, welcome back. What did you think about all those fabulous block puzzle games? I think they're great. Let me know in the comments what your favourite is, and it might be one that I haven't mentioned today. I didn't do an honourable mention actually for one of the games which I really love. I didn't include it on here because I don't think it's necessarily as big a phenomenon as some of these games, and that's a game called Zookeeper, which I also play a lot, which is a game that I originally played on the DS, which is another sort of a block swapping puzzle game, which I also found suitably addictive. But I didn't feel like it should have been mentioned in the top 5, despite the fact it is a game that I do enjoy. So a bit of an honourable mention for Zookeeper there. But let's talk about these 5 games then. So first of all, let's talk about which one we think is best. Well, let me know what you think is best. It's very, very hard. I think from the point of view of addictiveness, for me personally, my favourite is Lumines. I absolutely love it. And it is a game that I will just play for hours, but I appreciate also that it's not a game for everyone. I love the vibe of it, I love the music in it, and I love the way that it responds to the music, and it is, you know, it's got a sort of 14-year advantage in terms of technology compared to some of the others coming out in 2004. Most of them are early 90s. Tetris obviously way back in the 80s. So Lumines, definitely the sort of the younger child in this list, and it is a really fabulous game. And if you've never played it before and you enjoy a block puzzle game, I would definitely go and check it out. It is a really, really good game. If you've got a Vita or you've got access to the newer version as well, that is also really, really good. But the original Puzzle Fusion game on the PSP, absolutely fantastic. So as far as addictiveness goes, I think probably for me personally at least, Lumines is definitely the most addictive game, and probably the one that I have played the most out of all of them. But I also appreciate it's probably not the best. It's probably not the best block puzzle game. The best block puzzle game probably for most people, I think, is probably going to be Tetris. As a cultural phenomenon, Tetris was just enormous. Not least because of Nintendo and the Game Boy. I think that's where it really entered into most people's psyches, and it opened up a whole world of gaming for people that had never really considered it before. People might buy a Game Boy and just play Tetris, which is remarkable, and it really was a phenomenon, and it is an incredible game. It's so simple. It's the premise of it is very, very simple, and it hasn't really changed. It hasn't aged. It hasn't dated. The mechanics are pretty much identical even now. There's even a VR version, which I've not played. I just don't understand how that works, but maybe one day I'll have a look at it. So, you know, and actually, when I came in to do this video, initially, I came in and I thought, you know what, I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to say that Lumines is the best block game out there and everybody should go check it out, and it's better than Tetris. And obviously, I played all 5 of the games that I reviewed, and very quickly, as soon as I started playing Tetris again, I was like, no, what, this game is amazing. It is just amazing. You cannot understate its importance or its cultural impact. And therefore, you know, it just would be wrong for me to come in. It would be controversial, but it would also be stupid and wrong, in my opinion. So, you know, I think Tetris is certainly the most important of that list of 5. But they're all really great games. I mean, in terms of probably the 2 that sit at the bottom of that 5 is probably going to be drmario and Columns for me. Columns is a game that I think Sega did a great job at trying to build a Tetris killer. And it wasn't a Tetris killer, but it was good. It was a good effort, and I think Columns is a good game, and it is a good pick up and play, and it's a game you can play for sort of 5 or 10 minutes. Like I said, it gets very hard very quickly, and then it's game over. So it is really good fun from that point of view. But for me, it has more of a limited appeal than something like Tetris or Lumines. drmario the same. drmario also gets quite hard quite quickly, and I find it is good. It's quite addictive. It's more addictive, I think, than Columns, and it is a really, really good game, and it's quite innovative. But it's very similar. Even though it is a different game, it's weird. It does have a similar feel to Tetris, but I think Tetris is just a little bit better. But drmario, really, really great game. I would definitely go and check out the NES version of it, the colour version of it, rather than the Game Boy version. I've played both. The Game Boy version is also lots of fun as well. So, great games. Really, really, really enjoyable as well. And then the only one we haven't mentioned is Puyo Puyo. Now, I really love Puyo Puyo. It's fantastically Japanese, and it's got that, you know, I didn't know, like I said, until I started doing my research on it, I didn't know that it had its roots in RPG. It's bonkers. And it's got that, you know, that anime feel to it. I love it. I love the style of the game. I think it's brilliant, and it's very creative, and it's very colourful, and also it's quite influential. You know, I mentioned things like Bejeweled and Candy Crush, you know, that they feel like they've got their roots in that game. And it's good, and I like the 2-player aspect of that game as well, you know, with the sort of dropping the garbage Puyos on your opponent. That bit is quite fun, and it's a bit different to the other puzzle games in that respect, unless of course you're playing 2-player drmario. So it is a good fun little game. Did I say drmario? Which was the 2-player one? Yeah, drmario. I think it's 2-player. Yes, that's right. A moment then, the senior moment. But yeah, so 5 really, really good games. I think they are all absolutely worthy of their position in that top 5, and I think they're all games that are worth playing. But certainly, if I had to pick my top 3, I think you probably know what they are. It would be Puyo Puyo, Tetris and Lumines, not necessarily in that order. So there you go. That is my Battle of the Blocks. What do you think? Let me know. Have I missed any games? Do you disagree with what I'm saying? What are your memories of those fabulous games? Okay, so now and next, few things coming up in the channel. We're going to take a break from PSP next week, and we're going to look at something else. I've had a delivery which I want to unbox in front of you. I'm very, very excited about it, so I'm going to talk to you more about that, and I'll keep it a mystery until next Friday, in an attempt to try and keep you tuned. So it's a new device related to something that I've been looking for. That's about the only clue I'm going to give, and I haven't really spoken about it, so you're probably not going to work it out. I've got the monthly PS1 Racer Challenge coming up, which is Toka 2. Now, at the point of recording, and this is probably incredibly unprofessional, I'm not sure whether this video will go out before or after I've recorded. These videos I tend to record in advance and then it will go out on Friday. I'm not sure whether I'm going to get to do the Racer one beforehand or not. So if it's already there, go check it out. And if it's not there, yeah, it'll be soon. It'll be soon. Obviously, we've got Bit Between also coming up. So yeah, go check out my Bit Between videos. So those are my short, sort of 15-minute game reviews of games that I've either played or not played before. I have had a recommendation for a game, which I'm going to do in a couple of weeks' time when I get a moment. I've also got my 1-minute shorts, which are appearing on TikTok now and on YouTube Shorts as well. Is that everything? Oh yes, one more thing. So we will be getting back to PSP in a few weeks' time, or a couple of weeks' time, and I am going to be starting to have a look at the Grand Theft Auto series. So whilst I'm travelling, I'm going to be taking Vice City with me and Liberty City Stories, and I'm going to be playing those as well as many, many other things, or pretty much as I can fit in my travel case, and especially Lumines, of course. And I will report back to you on what those have been like. I really wanted to revisit the Stories games because they are really, really good, actually. So we will leave it there for today, but if you enjoy these videos, you're interested in some of those things that are coming up, please do hit that like and subscribe button and you'll get notifications when I've got new videos publishing. Really do appreciate all of your support, so thanks very, very much for that. Hope you enjoyed today's video, but yeah, that's it for today. So please do all take care of yourselves. I'll see you around. Bye for now.